Okay, so let's give you a few higher education updates before we get into the federal updates. Again, I'm always surprised by how many students don't know we have state aid, state financial aid for them. So we want to make sure students are aware of that. Last year, we distributed over $260 million in college scholarships to students throughout North Carolina. That went to over 104,000 students, so pretty sizable budget. We also distributed over $24 million in forgivable loans for things like teaching and nursing and doctors, and over 312,000 students were efficiently served through the online RDS service, where they got a consistent determination for in-state residency that saved them thousands of dollars in tuition and fees. We also launched the Next NC Scholarship public awareness campaign. You've heard, hopefully most of you have heard a little bit about it by now, but what our research shows is that when students know about not only Next NC, but the levels, if you're from a household making 80,000 or less, which more than half of households in North Carolina will qualify. Most of them will qualify for the Next NC scholarship, where they can essentially go tuition free to a community college or get at least $5,000 per year to attend a UNC institution. So it is bringing higher education within reach for many of those students. One of the things we're most proud of this last year is as the western part of our state was getting devastated by Hurricane Helene, we were able, with our partners, to quickly mobilize and distribute over $19 million of Next NC money to students who were impacted by the hurricanes. Either they live in a hurricane impacted county or were going to college in a hurricane impacted county. Students didn't need to do anything extra to get $850 for emergency aid shortly after the hurricane hit. If they had already completed a FAFSA and they already qualified for Next NC, that money was put in their account so they could buy a replacement laptop or any other emergency needs they had as they were looking to get back on track and get back to college. Okay, so as many of you know, this earlier in this year, we did FAFSA February together, and it was a collective effort for all of us. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on how did we do. So as you know, in the past, we have typically done a FAFSA day. This year, we chose to make it a FAFSA February to give you all more time to choose the times and locations that work for you and your partners. We provided a digital toolkit and other resources that you all got at the regional trainings in January and February, FAFSA Help Here, yard signs, and other things to make the most of your events. We also piloted the Financial Aid Champions, which you'll hear a little bit more about the success of the folks who participated in that during our award ceremony at the end of the day. The Financial Aid Champions chose from a list of what we know to be best practices in helping students with financial aid. They picked which ones they wanted to do, a minimum of 100 points, and then the ones that completed it and sent in the information we needed, they're going to get some swag today. So we're pretty excited to be passing that out. In terms of how did we do? So the top two gold lines and green lines is our normal trend line for the 2 years before Better FAFSA. The gold is North Carolina, green is the US. That's our normal trajectory. On the right, you'll see the green and gold lines that start in the middle of the year. That was Better FAFSA. So as you can see in April, how far down we were because of the very challenging rollout you all saw firsthand. But the good news is the two lines in the middle. The gold, again, is North Carolina. The green is the United States. And we are making significant progress, even though the form still opened about 7 weeks late this year. So thank you to all of you for your hard work. When we entered February, we were down about 7,000 FAFSAs. We've closed that gap. Now we're down about 2,100. So significant progress since just February. So truly exciting to be making that progress with you all. Many of you may remember, because we were down so far last year, as was every other state, we put in place FAFSA Summer Help, where we hired 87 school counselors and college access folks, placed them at 52 colleges across the state. And those folks engaged in over 46,000 outreach attempts to help students with their FAFSA in order to make up that gap that we were experiencing. Combined, we know that at least 5,200 FAFSAs were completed. We know it's quite a bit more than that, but that's what we were able to document. Students got their questions answered and went home and completed FAFSAs as well. So given the fact that we opened up 7 weeks late again this year, the feds didn't make FAFSA available until mid-November to everyone. We are doing the FAFSA Summer Help again this year. So we have 53 host sites participating. We've placed a college access counselor or advisor at each of those institutions, and they will be working through the end of July. And many thanks to our partners at Gear Up NC for helping us in partnership with funding this opportunity. All of these counselors will be paid for their work. So thank you to Gear Up NC. Okay, on to the federal update. The good news is I have good news to share. So the first thing is the form is expected to open up on October 1st. So we aren't expecting any delays this year. They are going to do their beta testing in September and October to make sure that all the kinks are worked out by the time October 1st rolls around. So you can get your plans started. You can count on October 1st. As you make those plans. There are two really big updates that they're doing for us. And again, this is in response to the field. So number one, there'll be same day FSA ID or studentaid.gov account setup as we know it now. You can coming into the fall, you will be able to set up your account and complete your FAFSA in the same day. Woohoo! Yes. So I will have a little bit more about that for you in a minute. The other thing they did is they simplified the contributor invite process. So as many of you know, so a few years ago when they were first introducing this new process with state agencies like us, we were in DC and they were telling us that students were going to need to invite their parents and need to know their legal name and their email and their phone and their social security number. I was like, are you kidding? Like, seriously? Like, you want parents to give their kids their social security number? I'm like, yeah, that's not really gonna work. So they're like, it's what we got. So you all made the best of that. But the good news is they have heard us. They see that they go look at data to see where students are dropping out of the process. And no surprise, inviting these contributors through this process is one of the biggest areas where they were seeing drop off. So they have updated the process, and we will give you more backgrounds. Okay, I'm gonna back up. So here's where I need to look at my notes because there's a lot of changes, but we will get the updated slides uploaded to the app, so you'll have these updates in and all that's involved. Okay, so for the new contributor process, this is what it's going to look like. The student invites the parent by entering their email. That's it. The parent in the email will get a code and they will log into their own studentaid.gov account and enter that code, and then they can contribute to their students' FAFSA. If for some reason the parent does not get the code, the student can go into their own studentaid.gov account. There will be a screen, which I have a screen grab for you, and they can see the code and either text it to their parent or just share it with them. But no more social security numbers are passing around or any of that. It's strictly their email. The student doesn't even have to enter the email that the parent used to set up their account. Go figure. So FSA is really working hard to think about how we actually work with students and how students and parents get stuff done. If the code does not time out, so if the student sends it to the parent and the parent doesn't get in there for 3 months, the code will still be there. The student does have the ability to revoke the code. So if something went wrong or they don't want their parent to have the code for whatever reason, they can revoke that at any time. So those are the big updates with that one. This is only for when the student starts the FAFSA. If the parent starts the FAFSA, then they have to go through the process we had this last year, where they will need to know the student's social security number and all the verifying information. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, okay. So that's it on the new contributor process. Good stuff? You excited? All right, good job. Okay, real-time account setup is the other new thing that they are putting in place for us. So students and parents that have a social security number can get their accounts and complete their FAFSA on the same day. They will have real-time verification of their accounts with the Social Security Administration. They will get real-time confirmation that it's matched. If there isn't a match, if the students, enter their social security number wrong, they'll get real-time input that there isn't a match so that they can go in and correct it in real time. So remember in the past, you'd have to set up an account, you'd have to wait 1 to 3 days, then you get the notice that there's an error, and then the student would have to go back in and you'd have to wait again for it to be verified. None of that. All happening in the same day. So real progress there. FAFSA, FAFSA does not currently import tax info for ITINs. So for families that don't have a social security number, we don't have an update to their process. So we won't have the same real time for those families, unfortunately. Okay, let me see if there's any more. And then we have a few more updates that are coming with FSA. They are working on an improved fraud detection process for new students where this is the first time they're applying. So many of you may be aware of the verification processes that folks need to go through. That is going to be simplified and streamlined over time. We can go through as we get more information. We'll be sharing that out with you all, but just know that they are working on improving that process. If a student submits a paper FAFSA, and it's processed, they will not be able to go in later and do an online electronic FAFSA. So if they go the paper route and it's processed, that's the process they have for this year. We always encourage any student who can complete the online one to do their FAFSA that way. But if they need to do a paper FAFSA, then that's the process they'll follow all the way through. They can make corrections, though, online if they have submitted a paper FAFSA. And then the last thing, which I hope also is good news for y'all, when we were on the call with FSA, since they're clearing out a lot of the old issues with it, they asked if there's anything else we want them to work on. And course, I always have suggestions. So as most of you know, the number one error for completing a FAFSA is missing signature. So either the student's missing or the parent's missing or the spouse or what have you. And so I said, this is not a legislative thing. Like, you don't need to go back to the legislature to get a law passed. You just need to change the design on the page. And it just so happens that the meeting they were having after the meeting with us was to talk about exactly that. So that is going to be fixed soon. I don't have an ETA on that. But, currently right now, when I went and pulled the data, we have, 900 students where their FAFSA is not being considered for financial aid because there's a missing signature. So it's a substantial number of students that in the future, hopefully we'll finally get that part fixed. Okay, so back to our regularly scheduled programming. In terms of House and budget updates, this is from the federal updates. There are a lot of proposals for the House and Senate budgets for higher education. I am not going to go through all those. So I'm only covering the biggest ones that are in both bills, which means they're more likely to pass. So the first is they're talking about changing student aid eligibility, which will remove access for eligible non-citizens. So that would be our asylees, refugees, and other types of eligible non-citizens. Again, it hasn't passed yet. The House and Senate are going through reconciliation, but it is in both bills. They are restoring exemptions for the farm and small business asset aid in the assets in the aid calculation. So you'll remember that got removed going into better FAFSA. They are restoring that. So that's good news for our families, and particularly our farm families. They're establishing workforce Pell Grants. And so that short-term Pell has been discussed for years. They are finally moving on that. Again, there is money in both budgets. They are both budgets provide $10.5 million towards the Pell shortfall that we currently know is, kind of hanging out there for us. So good news on that front. They are still talking about increasing full-time to 15 credits. No Pell for under half-time. You'll remember we went to a prorated by credit hour the last couple of years. They are talking about removing that. So again, none of this is formally passed, but those are the things we're keeping an eye on in partnership with our education systems. Okay, quick update on the legislative for North Carolina. The two things for you all to be aware of is they are looking to make some adjustments to the need-based scholarships that we administer for private colleges. Currently, the Senate budget version removes institutions with $1 billion or more in endowments. That's 3 institutions, Duke, Davidson, and Wake Forest, I believe, from participating. Both the House and Senate budgets reduce the total amounts of the funding available, but by different amounts. We're monitoring it to see what, if any, implication this has for students who want to go to private institutions. The other thing to be aware of is for students who graduate early in 3 years, the General Assembly several years ago passed a scholarship for them to go to college. It wasn't funded at the time because they were freshmen in high school. Now they're at the stage where they could go to college this fall. The Senate has put $1 million in their budget. The House doesn't have anything funded in it yet, so we're continuing to monitor that bill as well. Okay, very quickly, in terms of what's next, again, if you haven't already done the data walk, I encourage you to do so and to vote. Help us set a new FAFSA, a statewide FAFSA goal. We have Countdown to College coming this October. We're super excited to kick that off October 1st. College application week has already been set for the 20th to the 26th. So as you get into your planning sessions. Now, part of the reason why I have the graph underneath for you all to see is so that you can get a sense of no surprise in the fall, this massive, these are FAFSAs, but it's similar with the college applications, just a massive applications are filed in the fall, which is phenomenal. But so for the UNC institutions in particular, they come out super strong. But when you look at April to the end of summer, all of those yellow bars, those are community college applications. And so it's just a reminder that while Countdown to College kicks off in the fall and we're super excited about those students who are ready to take action, about half of FAFSAs are completed by January, but the other half are the rest of the year. So we want to make sure that those students who maybe are deciding a little later or exploring more options, that they also have support for the rest of the year. This is another look at the same information. And part of what I want to bring your attention to, again, we come out of the gate really strong with FAFSA completions. We fall behind the nation in January, and then we don't catch up until the end of summer. So part of the reason why we introduced FAFSA February and put a whole paid media campaign around it, and launched the Financial Aid Champions in January to April, again, is to bring some more attention to that part of the year. Clearly, other states are kind of keeping the momentum going throughout the year. Obviously, we have some students who are just going to decide late, but the more we can encourage those students to take action sooner, the more likely they are to go to college because they have a plan in place.